Miss Saxon in the Burris Media Center, and I am happy this month to showcase some work by some Hispanic and Latino authors. From September 15th to October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month, and it's a time to really celebrate the accomplishments of the Hispanic, Latinx, and Latino community and the impact that they've had, and they've certainly had a tremendous impact on literature. And I have a special book to share today, and this is very near and dear to me because it is by Sonia Sotomayor, Supreme Court Justice, but she was a great reader. She loved books, and the story definitely reflects her love of books and how libraries were a comfort place for her. They were a solace, and she really got her first steps through books and through the library. So this book is called Turning Pages, and it's an autobiography. Normally we use the word biography when we talk about a person's true story, but because she wrote the book herself, it's an autobiography. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to try to show the pictures. I hope you can see. I'm going to turn the pages of Turning Pages. This shows some pictures of her growing up. She grew up in Brooklyn, and I always think it's interesting to see pictures of famous people as a child, because sometimes when we're a kid, things seem so hard and so far off, but everyone started out as kids. Everyone started out as students, and even Supreme Court justices. My story is a story about books, of poems and comics, of law and mystery, of science and science fiction, written both in Spanish and in English. Even though I was born and grew up in New York City, Espanol, Spanish, was the language we spoke at home, the language of Puerto Rico, the island where my family came from. I struggled to learn English. Balancing two languages in my head wasn't always easy, but books made learning fun. Reading was like lighting candles, each book a flame that lit up the world around me. What was so special about books? Do written words have unique magic? At each step in my life, I would put together an answer, and like pieces to a puzzle. My first memory of the power of words came from Abuelita, my beloved grandmother. Every Saturday, my aunts and uncles would gather for a party at her home. After we ate dinner, the crowded little room would get quiet. Abuelita would close her eyes and recite poems written long ago about the tropical land our family left behind. The words she spoke sent a charge through the room and sparked memories of her faraway island home. I didn't know how to read yet, but written words, I discovered, were electrical currents that jolted feelings to life. When I was 7, I got sick and was diagnosed with diabetes. I was so afraid of the big needle used to take my blood for testing at the hospital that I ran outside and hid under a parked car. I also learned that I would have to get shots every day to stay alive, and those needles were scary. I found courage in an unlikely place: comic books. After reading stories of regular people who had secret superpowers that could save the world, I imagined being as brave and powerful as they were. Then I learned to give myself the shots, and in time, I got used to it. Books, it seemed, were magic potions that could fuel me with the bravery of superpowers. I may have been inspired by Supergirl, but I still needed to use an airplane if I wanted to fly. When we took trips from the cold concrete streets of the Bronx to sunny Puerto Rico, I ate fresh mangoes that had just fallen off the trees, sipped juice straight from the coconut, and marveled at the shimmer of tiny glowing creatures in the bay at night. But my favorite time was siesta at my aunt's house in Mayaguez. At lunchtime, we feasted on rice and beans and chicken spiced with sofrito, a delicious mixture of tomatoes, onion, garlic, and peppers. Then bellies stuffed full, and all of my aunts and uncles and cousins would settle down for a nap in the peaceful quiet of the afternoon. Their nap time was my reading time. I had trusty books to keep me company. Books were my loyal friends. They made it so I never felt lonely. When I was 9, my father, Puppy, who had been sick for a long time, passed away. I felt sad and confused, and my home was filled with gloom. But I discovered a place where I could feel comfort. All summer long at the nearby Parkchester Library, I walked through the aisles and touched the musty volumes until one book after another caught my eye. I read as many books as I could. I wanted to read them all. I was lucky to have a library that was in my neighborhood, walking distance from my home. For hours I could sail away to wondrous lands and the stories I would choose from the stacks. The library was my harbor, and books were little boats that helped me escape the sadness at home. Leaving home, though, was the farthest thought from my mind the day a delivery man rang our bell at the apartment, hauling 2 huge, heavy boxes. "What's inside?" my brother Juan and I asked, and Mommy told us to look. Tearing open the packing tape, we discovered an entire encyclopedia. There were 24 massive books, each unveiling secrets about the world, from the tiniest atoms to the tallest mountains, from the hottest deserts to the frozen tundra. Mommy had created a library in our very own home. Every time I opened a volume, I learned new words and ideas. There were miracles of life taking place in our bodies, and outside in the world around us, I started to think about my place in it. I felt like a deep-sea diver exploring mysterious depths. Books were my snorkels and flippers, helping me get there. Back on land, Nancy Drew, the young girl detective hero in dozens of books, fired my imagination. Her make-believe life was so different than mine. She lived in a big house on a tree-lined street and partnered with her dad, a successful lawyer, to solve crimes. Despite our differences, I would doze off, picturing myself in Nancy's shoes. Could I figure out mysteries too? Books were a time machine, inspiring me to imagine what I would be when I grew up. When we moved to a bigger apartment in the Bronx, our new home wasn't anything like Nancy Drew's, but Juan and I finally got to have our own small rooms. It was really just one larger bedroom, divided by a thin wall, but we each got to decorate our rooms. I chose wallpaper with pictures of constellations in the sky. I loved reading science fiction books about journeys into deep space, time travel, and encounters with aliens. Even more amazing, real-life astronauts had landed on the moon. They left behind a gift of words, messages of peace from countries back on Earth, and I read everything I could about the moon landing. If that was possible, then anything I can imagine was possible too. Books were my launch pad, blasting me straight to my dreams. As I got older and read more, my future slowly started to take shape, like a ball of clay that you would carefully sculpt into a figure with your hands. In high school, my teacher assigned my class a book about boys on a deserted island who went wild because there were no rules. The boys hurt each other in the chaos of a land without laws. This book opened my eyes, and I saw why we needed laws and rules to feel safe, so that people have the freedom to grow and flourish. I did not yet know that I would end up working in law, as a lawyer and later as a judge, but I was learning why laws mattered. Books were lenses, bringing into focus truths about the world around me. You can see this book is Lord of the Flies, that some of you guys might read later on. The Bible was a special book we studied at my Catholic high school. It taught me lessons about how to treat my neighbors. In one story, Jesus was approached by a crowd ready to punish a woman who had done wrong. Instead, Jesus challenged them, saying, "He that is without sin among you, let him be the first to cast a stone at her." His calm, powerful words made people think. Slowly and silently, the people let her be and went home. I learned that we shouldn't be so quick to judge people who do the wrong thing. Sometimes we make mistakes that can hurt someone, but that doesn't mean that we're bad people. It might mean that we need to say we're sorry and put things right and try harder. Books were teachers, helping me sort out right from wrong. When I started college at Princeton University, the tree-lined paths and old stone buildings looked very different from my neighborhood in the Bronx. But I was excited to be there. I was homesick, and sometimes I felt like I was drowning in everything I didn't know. I quickly discovered the massive Firestone Library, where I could find books on everything. It was so much bigger than my neighborhood library. I would study for hours to catch up. I even improved my writing by using grammar books. Books became my life preserver, keeping my head above water. All that reading taught me about the farthest reaches of the planet, and even about the little island closest to my heart, Puerto Rico, I read about men and women who worked hard, who were paid very little. I read about how Puerto Rico became part of the United States of America. And just like in the books, my grandfather worked in a cigar factory and got sick from the dust, and my aunt spent long days stitching handkerchiefs. Like many of the Puerto Ricans who came to New York, Mommy had a hard life. She studied for many years to become a nurse and was able to scrimp and save so that her kids, Juan and I, would have a brighter future. Reading had long taught me about the world outside, but now I was seeing in books a reflection of the lives led by my own family. Books were mirrors to my very own universe. When I became a lawyer, I used cases in law books to convince judges that people on trial were innocent or guilty, how they had done right and where they had gone wrong. Just as my own family's story was mirrored in history books about Puerto Rico, I saw that law books reflected real-life stories of people who'd gotten into trouble but still needed to be treated fairly in court. Law books were maps to guide us to justice. Justice means treating people fairly under the law. It's also the name of where I am now, Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. As a justice, I study the most important words in American law, the founding document of our government, the Constitution of the United States, and decide which laws agree with it. Every day I borrow from lessons of law books in the past and write decisions and opinions that will be bound into the law books of the future. Books are keys that unlock the wisdom of yesterday and open the door of tomorrow. Flame, electricity, magic potion, friend, boat, snorkel, time machine, launch pad, lens, teacher, life preserver, mirror, map, key. The written word has been all these things to me, and more as long as I can remember. Like flagstones on a path, every book I ever read took me to the next step. I needed to go in school and in life, even if I didn't know exactly where the trail would lead. Piece by piece, my own puzzle came together. Where will your journey lead you? So thank you for letting me share this book with you, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope maybe you'll try to find some more books about people who've made an impact in our world. So hi everyone, I'm actually in the Media Center and I'm in the bookshelves, I'm between the bookshelves, and I wanted to show you encyclopedias. Sonia Sotomayor talked about her mom buying a set of encyclopedias and how that was something really special in their household, and it gave them a lot of, it was like a key, it was like one of those, she talked about how books were like her boat, books were her key to learning, books were her map to the world, and encyclopedias were one of the tools that she used. And so I wanted to show you what an encyclopedias looks like. We have a set in the library. I have an entry here on Puerto Rico, where she was from. The encyclopedias give you like a little brief summary of a lot of different topics, and it goes from A to Z. So it's something that if you're just curious, you want to find out a little bit of information, an encyclopedia is a great resource to use. And what I think is really cool about encyclopedias is how it was something important to Sonia Sotomayor. And now, if you look at the S volume, there's an actual entry on her. So she went from reading encyclopedias to being a part of encyclopedias. So it's a great success story, and I hope you will learn more about her and other famous people and other important people during Hispanic Heritage Month. Thank you.